Hello, disruptors, viewers and listeners all over the globe. We are excited to welcome you to another phenomenal, exciting episode of Mindset Mastery Moments with yours truly, Dr. Alisa. And today, of course, I have another special guest in the studio with us. Today, we're exploring the mindset of transformational leadership. And it's not all about leadership, because we know that leaders are responsible for leading teams that can be small, large, mid-sized, in all industries, wherever we work. So today, we are going to be uncovering an operational system that promises to give 40% better employee performance and overall results. Well, you're probably wondering, what on earth could that be? 40% better results? Yeah, so I'm inviting all our team leads, operational managers, and entrepreneurs across the globe to really just sit back and take in this episode. We promise it is going to be something that is transformational to the leadership design that you already have in place. But before we dive in, let's set the stage for the phenomenal guest that we have coming in today. I want to introduce you in just a few moments to our guest. His name is Mr. Bill Lennon. He is backstage. He is a brilliant mind behind the operational system that's called 40% better performance. Bill is eager to unravel his insights, and we're excited to have him share his wisdom with us today. Bill, come on up to the Mindset Mastery Moment stage and let's unravel this design that you created.
Thank you. That may be one of the best intros I've ever heard anywhere. That was amazing. Wow. Okay, I feel like I'm like another foot taller than I was when I woke up this morning.
That's the goal, because you absolutely are. You're definitely. And I'm so excited because we got a chance to meet and we talked about this system that you created, how you started. It's such a phenomenal thing. So to kick off the conversation, before we go any further, we definitely want to know who you are and how did you figure out 40% better results? Because I want it.
Sure. So I've been running software teams here in Silicon Valley for 25 years. And they kept doing things that people said were impossible. And I've helped everything from, small startups to Google and Walmart. And I've had teams I built from scratch, and I've had teams that I've inherited. And every time I used the exact same system, and their performance got better and better and better. And I didn't know how to explain what I was doing for the longest time. I had this unconscious competency. Which is pretty common in the world. People, they know how to do something really well, but they don't know how to teach it, right? And for me, it was super frustrating that I couldn't teach anybody what I was doing. And then I met my partner, who was able to help me reverse engineer into language and actually show me, oh, here's all the baby steps that really anybody can do.
Yes.
Okay, now I can turn my unconscious competency into a conscious competency, and I can help other people get the same kind of results.
Right. So tell us a little bit about your behind the scenes before. Where did you start? I mean, you said Silicon Valley, and many of us business leaders and execs, some of us at some point had this dream of being in Silicon Valley. How did you even get there? I mean, take us back to younger days, your journey as a leader, and you got into this transformational space.
Yeah, I was in the military. And so we traveled around a lot. He decided to retire in Hawaii and become a marine zoologist, which meant I got to spend a lot of my formative years there. I got into racing cars and moved to California, and that got me Silicon Valley adjacent. And then a few years later, a friend of mine asked me if I would make a couple of sales calls for him. And he had a brand new startup. This is early in the internet days, just purely voluntary. And I said, sure, no problem. That turned into him asking me to come work for him and do sales calls. And then I wanted to learn how to write code. And then I became a software engineer and went to another startup and built my first team. And I really wanted to make sure that two things happened with that team. Number one, they were high performing, but number two, they were happy. And And so everything that I thought about was my success is driven by how well my team performs.
Right.
And in the process of that, the CEO of the company, one day, he and I were talking about me being a brand new team lead.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, don't worry about writing code ever again. If you never write code, I'm totally happy. Your job is to make your team more productive. Like, you need to really focus on that. And I said, oh, well, that's a whole different game. And I hadn't thought about that. Okay, great. Thank you. And so that gave me the space to really double down on that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
Right? What's everything I can do to make this team of amazing people that I've got? And I had a dozen people between software engineering and customer service, all of whom I'd hired.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I help them be, number one, happy at work, but also two, really productive, so that our customers are really happy. Because at the end of the day, happy customers are what we all want in our business.
That's right. They keep coming, they return and they spend money and they bring other happy customers.
Yeah. And I just kept iterating on that, on how do I make this work better? Every time that I learned something new, I was like, okay, what can I do better? Right.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of the Japanese Kaizen model, which is 1% better every day.
Yes.
And so it's little tiny improvements, it's little small things. And I'm like, oh, that might help.
Yes.
What can I learn that I can then bring back to the team and help them out? And so it's been 20 years of refinement of
20 years
about that. Yeah.
And now you sit at the helm of a system that you have tried and tested and proven, not just in yourself, but with many of your clients that bring 40% better performance. Yep. Awesome. So I am loving this. So I want you viewers and listeners that are with us, I want you to hear that the goal in his mindset was, how can I even just bring just a little bit of change and transformation in the processes that I already had as a leader, make it better daily. He did not start off going for 40% better results. He started going for better results. So kind of tell us that defining moment in your career or in your journey as a transformational leader that brought you to where you were fully in pursuit of these type of systems, because it wasn't just about now you 1%. You determined that you can build a full system that brings 40% performance. And what is that all about?
So one of the things that happened, the third or fourth company that I was at, I'd been working with smaller size teams, and I was really comfortable with having a dozen people. And I went to this company, interviewed, I'm looking for a new job, and they were like, "Great, we're going to hire you, and here's your team." And it was, I don't know, 8 people or something like that. And the day before I started, I'm doing this onboard conversation with the VP of product, and he says, "Oh, by the way, you're actually responsible for this division of the company. It's 80 people."
Wow.
And luckily we were on the phone and he didn't see my facial expression, which was panic, because I don't know how to run 80 people. And at that point in time, I somehow, we ended the conversation, and then I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know what to do with 80 people. Can I resign right now? And only I had a mortgage to pay, so I couldn't just give it up, right? And I was
there was no escaping.
There was no escape. Oh my God. Over the weekend, I happened to be talking with a friend of mine, and she's got more years in business working stuff than I do. And I was talking to her about my fears, and she said, "Well, wait a minute, hang on, let's unwind this for a minute. What are the things that you need to do in the first 6 months?" And I said, "Well, I've got this thing to do, and this thing to do, and this thing to do, and this thing to do." And they're all really easy, because these are all things I've done a bunch of times before. That's going to be a cakewalk. And she's like, "Okay, so what are you afraid of?" And I'm like, "Well, there's this thing and this thing and this thing. And I've never done them." And and one of them was I had to start doing PowerPoint presentations. And I never touched PowerPoint. And she goes, "Well, there's classes to learn how to use PowerPoint. Here's one that I really, really like. Start there. And then it's everything you're talking about is just a skill to learn. There's no magic."
Right.
And that was a real light bulb moment of me going, oh, okay. How do I break this down? And so, like, one of the things I was going to have to do was executive presentations for the whole company.
Right.
Right. And this was a super profitable business at the time. They had the company had multiple different business units. And I was really bad imposter syndrome at that idea. Right. And, but I was like, okay, how do I baby step my way up to this? Right. So I learned how to use PowerPoint. I started presenting to my software teams that were my direct reports. And that got me to get used to the technology, right? And comfortable, like, and it sounds crazy to talk about this now, but back then it was a brand new thing, right?
It's brand new. Yeah.
It was brand new for me, especially. And that's the important part. And so then I started helping the VP of product with his presentations.
Oh, wow.
Because he wanted me to start contributing, right? And initially it was send me some emails, right? Send me some notes. And then it was, hey, can you just do this page of the slide deck, right? And then I was like, sure, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then we started doing it, and I said, can I present that page, right? Because I wanted the next increment was actually being me doing the presentation, right?
Right.
And so I got to do, we would do that in the middle of the meeting, right? Okay, Bill's going to talk about his group stuff, and then he started giving me more and more stuff until I was doing all of his work, and it was it didn't happen in a day or a week. This took like 10 months, right?
Okay, but it added up.
It kept right. It's 1% better every day, right? It's this little baby steps, and where every next increment it's new, but it's uncomfortable, but it's not terrifying.
Yes.
Right. And so I'm getting a little bit better, a little more. And then I got to this point where I was like, oh, okay, I know how to do this stuff, and it's not scary anymore, and it's easy. And when the CEO would reach out and go, hey, I want you to present on this subject to these people, I'd be like, okay, no problem.
Right.
Not a big deal. But I had, in looking back, it's I was doing there 1% better every day.
Yes. And it added up.
And it was all a system that really anybody could replicate. Right? And that's, it was years later when I had executives ask me how come my teams were doing these crazy performances that they didn't know how to do themselves. I realized, oh, I've got this system. I don't understand it because I didn't at that time have the language, but it's a system, and I keep doing the same things over and over again.
Right.
And now I need to figure out, how do I explain it? Right. How do I break it down
to someone else to get it?
Exactly. Yeah. And what are the little pieces of it? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And so I hope everyone's hearing the how you adapted your mindset with a principle that I love to teach, which is think, speak, do, become. And you started off with the challenge. You're like, oh my gosh, this makes me want to run, which is normal. That's okay to feel, and it's okay to acknowledge. But then you're like, oh, all right, now what you did was you lean in to someone when you talked about your partner, who we'll talk a little bit more about later on in the episode, but you leaned in for help. And your thought was not, you felt like running, but your thought was, okay, so how do I figure this out? How can I talk about that? How can I mindset? And that's when you lean into your partner, who became your partner down the road. And we'll talk about that. Yeah. But you leaned in. And so now your thought pattern, you're like, oh yeah, I don't really have to figure out all this. I just need to figure out how to do a PowerPoint because I already know this other stuff. I know the stuff. I just need to figure out how to make someone else understand it. So your thought process from how can I to now have an action step because you recruited the right help, and that became something that you started to do, creating habits around. Now you're actually helping someone else.
Right.
And then here we are, several years later with a operating system that is phenomenal, 40 BP, 40% better performance. And so, did I say that right? Because I'm still getting used to it, but I'm like, it's really cool. Listen, I'm probably going to be sharing this with people everywhere I go. You need to check this out because I absolutely love it. So here's another question I have for you. So thank you for bringing us. I mean, some of our viewers and listeners may not be in the transformational or the leadership spot, but that mindset that you adapted to pivot to where you are today in your journey is what's so important. And so I wanted us to emphasize that. But here's a follow-up question I have for you about transformational leadership. In your view, what truly defines a transformational leader? And why is cultivating that type of mindset so crucial to achieving better results?
Good question. Very good question. I think the starting point is this thing that I mentioned a minute ago, which is how do I help my team to operate better?
Right.
I mentioned my dad's in the military. He ran supply chains in the military. And he always said that his success was 100% the result of his team, because they were moving stuff that was hundreds to thousands of pounds of weight and that he couldn't move on his own. And a lot of the stuff that they were doing required multiple people to be coordinated to do things in a moment. Otherwise, it just didn't work. Right. And so I had this mental model to start with from my childhood that my success was going to be a result of the team and how well they were doing. Right. And so that's a real key piece to get to start with, right? It's about helping everybody else be successful. And this is the definition of servant leadership.
Come on now.
Is to really get everybody else to be successful. And one of the frameworks, one of the mental models that we talk about here is you really want to let people be successful, however success works for them. And so, because I want them to be engaged in their improvement, right? I don't want to be ordering people around because it doesn't work. Right?
Micromanaging
for so long. If they're intrinsically motivated, internally motivated, then they're going to do the stuff that's going to support them. And as long as I can figure out how to have their intrinsic motivation be aligned with something the team needs to have done, then I get this huge improvement in performance and they're delighted about it.
Yes.
Right? And really, I'm not stuck on, well, I hired you to do this job.
Right.
Right. I'm really more about how the whole team. Right. I've got this group of people. How can I move them around so that they're happy and highly motivated and highly productive? Some of them are going to love where they're at and awesome, but others are going to, after 6 months, a year, 5 years, whatever it is, they're going to say, hey, I want something different.
Yes.
And great, but awesome. Okay. What do you want to do? How do you want to change? What's the transformation that you're looking for? And some of those people are going to say, hey, I want to get promoted. I want to become a team lead. What do I have to learn? Right. Awesome. Love that. Huge win. And some of them are going to be, I'm in software and I'm doing back end work, but I want to start doing front end work.
Yes.
Right. Or I'm in QA and I want to become a coder. But, I had a guy in one of my teams, he ended up moving to sales.
Yeah.
From being a software engineer.
Wow.
And which is a pretty radical jump. But he said, I'm not having fun. Like, I need to change. And I said, great. We got this whole company of people here. Take an hour or two every Friday and go hang out with people in other parts of the company. Come back in a few months. Let me know what you like.
Right.
And he said, those sales guys, I'm really fascinated by what they're doing. And I said, great. How about if I get you over there for 2 weeks? Because and it worked. He went over there and he became a stellar salesperson.
Yes.
And so, for me, number one, that means everybody else in the team knows about it, right? So they're like really happy that I'm not upset that he wants to move
on. Yeah.
So they actually trust me more. Right. And from a leadership perspective, I will admit to being very, very selfish, that I want my team to look at me through rose-colored glasses.
Come on now.
Yeah. So everything I can do to make that happen, I'm gonna do it. Right.
Exactly.
The other thing is we never lost his institutional knowledge.
So
he's over there but he's still at the company. And if I've got a question, someone else on the team has a question about something he built, we just go, hey,
Yep.
Jeff, what you did this thing,
Right?
some, what's the right? If he had gone off to work for another company,
That was a loss. You can't call him.
Exactly. Right. So we have the institutional knowledge in-house, and to me, that's really valuable.
It is absolutely valuable. And so that's what, when you talk about transformational leadership, it's a lot. I mean, this, leadership is one of the largest discussed topics around the globe. I mean, it just never, no matter which country or who I'm talking about. And even when we're not talking about leadership, it's what keeps the it's like the oil in the wheel. It's what's going. And when you said, "Oh, I'm selfish," yeah, you are, but you're keeping it in a selfish way to empower yourself as a leader. Not the thing about it, you understood that to help build your rapport and your credibility as a leader meant you had to build your team. Exactly. And that's the missing factor in a lot of individuals that lead. Or again, I said, well, just because you're in a management position doesn't make you a leader.
Right.
And so a leader understands, and I'm like, you can't lead any other way but serving. So even the word for me, servant leadership, which I use a lot, is one of my biggest, when I talk about leadership, I talk from that perspective. It's a redundant word because for me, the whole term leader means servant. So it's like servant leadership is like servant. Okay, that's how it is for me. And if we can think that way, it would help us. So when you're leading, you're actually saying, if I can empower my team to have the freedom to bring themselves to work and still understand how to play to meet this goal, they'll like me because they're feeling free, they're feeling uplifted, they're feeling motivated, they're feeling valued. Oh, so now they look at me like the hero, which, let's just face it, every human on this planet, we like that. You're not alone, Bill. That's what we want. We want to know that people like us, they trust us, and they value us, and they respect us, and they feel like if this doesn't have Bill in it, it's not going to work. It's just human to feel that way. Now, so when you say that, I hope that our viewers and listeners, and I pray that as many leaders, if you know a leader, go ahead and just send them the message. Don't start saying things. Don't send this to your boss and say, Bill and Dr. Alisa says you need to change. just slide it over to them, DM it, and move on, because say you listen to this great transformational leader, Bill Lennon, who's talking about how to get true results. So we'll be right back to delve a little bit more into Bill's system after a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Disruptors, leaders from around the globe. We are back with the phenomenal transformational leader, servant leader, Bill Lennon, straight out of Silicon Valley. And with a system, an operational system, he has given us some background into how he developed the 40% better performance system for employees. Bill, we are so delighted. I'm loving the conversation and the lessons you've taught us so far. So as we delve a little bit deeper into this operational system, what are the key components that make it so effective to driving those 40% better results? If you want to break it down to us.
So we think about this by dividing up all the knowledge into 4 different areas, so that people can segment stuff, right?
Right.
That's how we segment knowledge, right? So one of them is understanding how to have a growth mindset and how to look at this as a growth mindset opportunity. And you know what growth mindset means, obviously.
Yes.
Because you have to be able to feed that, right? So there's a bunch of pieces involved in how do you have a growth mindset, and what is it you have to do to take it from an intellectual idea to an operation and a habit that you're doing on a daily basis. Right?
Come on.
The Ansari tribe of Papua New Guinea says knowledge is a rumor until it lives in the muscle.
Ooh.
And yeah.
I love it.
So it's not just intellectual, it's practice.
Yes.
Right? You have to actually be doing something.
Come on.
In another way to put this is, you can read all the books in the world about swimming,
Mm-hmm.
You're not a swimmer until you're in the water and you're actually doing something, right?
Come on.
You're just a reader otherwise. So you have to really be doing the growth mindset work, right? That's really the first step.
The habits.
Exactly. The second part is the perspectives you have to have, the mental frameworks that you have to look at the world through, the filters you have to use to be able to be a successful leader. And one of them, which, I've got to credit one of my CEOs with giving me, was that the team leads, first level team leads, have the most leverage on company performance. And so my focus is not on teaching executives. Unlike most leadership trainers, no offense to the folks in the C-suite, but I want you to sign the check to hire us to help you. But the people that I want to work with are actually the team leads.
Yes.
And the
middle managers.
The first level managers and the people that are individual contributors who might want to be team leads in the future.
Right. Oh, I love that.
Because you want to teach them, number one, how to get better performance. Because as a company, you're going to make more money and get more product out the door if those first level people are operating better.
Come on now.
And again, no offense to the C-suite, but they tend to be too far away, insulated on a daily basis.
Yes.
Be able to help put their operational mental models into the tactical day-to-day stuff of the people doing the real work, right?
Yes.
And so, like your sales team, right? If your sales leader can help the sales team improve their performance by 40%, that's kind of a big deal, right? Same thing with software engineering. If I can help my team put out 40% more code, everybody in the company benefits.
That's right.
So that's really where I'm focused. And so you have to have all the mental models for that, right? And you have to understand as a team lead how powerful you are within the context of the company. And most team leads don't understand that. They don't understand that they're the ones that are actually making everything happen.
Come on.
And the folks above them who don't understand that very well, you need the tools as a team lead to be able to go and get your point across and get them to say yes to what you need, right?
Yes, exactly.
So part of the stack of skills is how do you communicate them effectively,
right?
So that they will say yes when you want something. And that's one of the challenges of team leadership is team leads don't learn how to go make requests that are going to be successful.
Right.
One of the ways that I help my teams is I figured out how to go make requests of the executives where they almost always say yes. Because I frame it in a way that for the executive, it's an easy yes.
It's an easy yes.
Because they see the benefit through their success metrics.
Right. The WIFM, the what's in it for me principle.
Exactly.
A lot of people are pitching things that only make sense to their bottom line. And so even inside the corporate environment, we all have our focus areas. And it's like, okay, that's a win for you, but that doesn't affect me. So why would I say yes to that? Right. I love that. Yeah. So Bill, could you share with us some real life examples or case studies, if we may, where your operational system has led to significant improvements in team performance and project outcomes?
Sure. So the way that I came up with 40% Better as a company name, was I was at a company. I inherited a software team. The day that I started, the CTO, was doing the onboarding. Here's your computer, all that jazz. Here's all your credentials. And at the end of the conversation said, by the way, I got to tell you that I'm giving you the worst performing team in the company.
Yeah.
They've been together for almost 10 years. Good luck. And I said, okay, well, I love a challenge. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And I walked out the door. 6 months later, I'm walking around the office and he goes, hey, Bill, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. What's up? He pulled me into his office and closed the door. And he said, what have you done to your team? And I said, I don't know. What are you talking about? He goes, we gave you the worst performing team in the company. They're now the best performing team in the company. Their coding throughput has gone up by 40% in the last 6 months. We've never been able to do anything with them. What are you doing? And I said, I take really good care of my teams.
That's right.
And because at that time I hadn't figured out the system yet, right? I didn't have the language yet.
Yes, the language.
And he said, well, if you ever figure it out, you have to tell me what it is you're doing because as far as I know, that's impossible.
Wow.
Right? And I said, Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yes.
A few months later, he came to me and said, "Hey, we've got this project that we need to get done,
Uh-huh.
and it's a Hail Mary for the company, and we think this is a 12 to 15 month project. We only have a 9-month window. Do you want to see if you can take it on? Oh, and by the way, if you don't get it done, you're going to get fired."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we're gonna need a scapegoat.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
They told you up front.
they told me up front, like I understood the whole game on day one.
Oh,
And
my goodness.
And I said, well, let me go talk to my team and see what they say. And he said, okay. And I went back to the team and we had a team meeting and I told them what was going on. And they said, explain to them, what the parameters or what we had to build. And they said, yeah, we can get done in time. Don't worry about it.
Uh-huh.
I said, okay, awesome. Great. Went back and put my job on the line and said, sure, we'll get it done in time. We actually got it done in 8 months.
Okay.
And had enough time to train everybody on it.
Mm-hmm.
We had to design a whole new tool suite for the company from scratch, whole new architecture. We changed fundamental business processes inside the company.
Yeah.
Along the way, and managed to save the biggest client that the company had, which at that time was Walmart.
Yeah.
Because their servers crashed and they were relying, like all the stuff they normally would have been doing, we ended up doing for them.
Oh.
And so, when it was all done, they were like, that was amazing. Again, how did you do that?
How did you do that?
And I said, I take good care of the teams. 2020 hindsight, I had built through the system a really high degree of psychological safety for everybody on the team. And so because of that, they were willing to say things in team meetings that were kind of vulnerable and scary because it was a risk.
Yeah.
Right? The complete redesign we did of the business process for the company, when my UI guy came up with that, like that was very, very risky. He's like, I know we've been doing everything this way, but this will actually work better. And I was like, wow, that's going to be a fun conversation across the board. There's literally hundreds of people in the company that are impacted by this. And let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Let me make sure that I really understand it really, really well. And how do I frame this so that they all say yes?
Right.
And
it's getting that yes.
And so that's what we did, right? We figured out how do we get everybody to say yes, to be able to give them enough data and really hook it in for them so that they would go, oh, that totally makes sense. Of course, we should go do that.
Yes.
And then we new programming language everybody had to learn, new database everybody had to learn, we moved everything to the cloud. And everybody on the team had ownership.
Right.
They got that they were doing this for a really important reason and that their best thinking was all that I wanted.
Yes.
Right. And it was amazing. It was
you got cool. Those results. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So brilliant. Wow.
Thank you.
So that excites me. And you said something that I believe in so firmly. And again, if you guys are following on, understand, Bill uses this word. He says, I didn't have the language for what I was doing. I just knew that this needed to be done to get these results. And then he developed the language. And so what I'm hearing you say also, you said the psychological impact of how you dealt with your teams was a big proponent. What does that psychological impact look like? What is that what does that look like for them? What would be that thing that you did?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, goes back to the fundamental of I want the team to be happy, right? And they have to trust me. Right. And one of the things that I realize is that team leads, when they start off, they're not trusted by the team. You're in a negative trust place.
Facts.
Because historically, team leads have not taken good care of their teams.
Right. No, you're walking into that from the get-go.
But that's just, that's history, right? And because they didn't know what to do, this is a knowledge problem, right?
Yeah.
You do whatever you know how to do. right? And if you know how to take care of your teams really well, you know how to take care of them very effectively, they will give you great performance.
Right.
Part of what I did was I did one-on-ones with my team every week.
Come
and
on.
I just said, okay, how's your life? Like, it's not about me. It's all about you, right? I want to know how your life is. What's going on? What do you need? And literally, sky's the limit. I don't even care, right?
Exactly. I'm just listening.
I can make that happen,
right,
for you. Your life's going to be easier, right?
Come on.
Whatever it is, right? The unspoken part of this is that I know that if you're happier and you're feeling better taken care of at work, your performance is going to improve. Because you're worried about something that's dragging you back, and it's a friction. And my job is to get rid of friction as much as I possibly can.
Yes.
And so, for some people it's, I need to work from home a couple of days a week because childcare or aging parent, or because the commute sucks. I don't care what the reason is. Great. Okay. No problem. I had people that wanted to learn new skill sets. I had people who I had some really strong introverts on my teams. I've always had introverts, and I've helped them get out of their introversion and become really vocal contributors in team meetings.
Yes.
So part of this is I've developed this system to help introverts become not introverts.
Come on.
Ambiverts, right? In the team meetings, they'll speak up and they'll speak, right?
Right. They will still make the points and give their contribution and their opinion on the team. You can be quiet, but you speak up when it's time.
And getting them out of being not just, like when I inherited them, they were quiet and they never spoke up.
Right.
And when I get them to be relaxed and comfortable about speaking up, it's a whole new experience, because they're really, really smart.
Right.
And they're bringing a lot of interesting wisdom to the process that they had never said before.
Right. Which now you just give yourself, now coming into this team that already existed, probably not so happy because you just got assigned them from going through a little bit of bruise from the other previous leader, not knowing really how to handle a team. And here you come. And so it's like, that's a plus already. You already got, in my opinion, 50% better results just getting the contribution from all the team members. Like,
right.
What I heard you say, because a lot of organizations have evoked the model of the weekly one-on-ones or the weekly team meetings. The thing that you said different, I want to highlight this. You did not make the conversation on that one-on-one about what's the data? How many did you get? How many did you do this? Yeah. Did you do that? Did you do that? Now, you may have to include some of that, but you said the focus was on the team member. It was what's going on with you as a whole, not just you as relate to this position. Because that's the thing about servant leadership and transformational leadership. We don't view people as a robot. I feel like the world, even some of the HR policies and things that have been put in place to protect people, can be painful, hurtful. And if you're not transformational and you don't have a growth mindset as a leader, you won't know how to still follow those guidelines and still be a human. So a lot of leaders, because of all the HR, they changed this, they changed that. With that how can I attitude, that growth mindset, you'll be like, okay, so this is set up to protect people. Great. Thank you, HR, for doing your job. As a leader now, I work with humans and I serve humans, and I keep humans serving my customer. I have to figure out ways, because when you have that one employee who is struggling with dealing with traffic or something, and you know that this job, this role does not require them to be in the office 5 days a week, you can say, well, listening, you got 5 out of 15 team members who are telling you the same thing on the one-on-one. As a leader, you can now go to your upper management and say, can we have a hybrid policy in place? Because because you built such a trust system with your employees already, they will work, they do even more. What I found during COVID, I did more work in my remote environment than I did when I was in the office.
Yeah.
And that is statistically proven. I thought, well, what? I seem to be doing more work. And of course, we didn't have a lot of stuff to do, but still, when we came off of COVID and we had everything open back up and we were still working remotely, I was still doing more. And actually, as a team leader, as a leader, I got more out of my staff, and I was able to spend more time with my staff too. We had more team meetings and more one-on-ones because we had more time in our schedule. That wasn't travel related. They were more relaxed. And so you listening to your team and working on presenting models to the higher leadership and saying, this will work really great for my team, because now, even if it's just one day, even if it's half a day hybrid, they feel like you heard them, the psychological impact, the intrinsic motivation that is dropped in, guys. Listen to what Bill is teaching us. Transform and give you that. He is guaranteeing that 40% better performance, right? And 40% is not just better performance. That's 40% more revenue, guys. Bill is like my hero to something I have been since I was a teenager and I started, visiting, interacting with corporations, and I had started my own business at 17. I, just like you, Bill, stumbled on these models that really gets performance and hit the bottom line that I didn't understand. When I start taking my business training and then later on leadership training, then it made sense. I was like, oh, that's what that is. But people had already talked about this, but no one really does, because we're all based on performance. But we have to understand the human factor. What you're teaching us is the human factor is directly correlated with the bottom line profit.
Yeah.
And to get profit, you got to have performance.
Yep.
Here's one thing I got for you before we go to our next segment and our next break. What are some of those common misconceptions about your system of achieving better results? And how does your system really address it? When we talk about achieving better results, there are misconceptions, like some I just highlighted. How does your system address those? If you want to share a couple of those with us that are common.
Yeah. So I think what you're asking for is what are the mental models that unsuccessful leaders use? Is that what you're asking for?
I love that. You just said it way better than I did. Come on.
So, the reason I just had somebody ask me this a few days ago. Question, right? So there's a few of them. One of them is, I hired a bunch of really smart people. I don't have to do anything to help them operate better on a daily basis because they're already really smart. That's not true.
Big mistake.
Because people need attention, and we're not static widgets. We're not robots.
Right.
We're not just a machine. And so we want that human interaction. We want to know that our boss cares about us. We want to advance our careers. We want to learn new things. And so team leads have to be involved with individual contributors to help them operate better.
Exactly.
Again, because the reason that you got that leadership role is to help the team operate better.
Right.
You're not just managing inventory. You're actually helping people to get better for the benefit of the company.
Yeah.
Right? For the benefit of themselves. And hopefully you also recognize what that means.
Right.
So that's one, is that you don't have to do anything with your people. A second one is, I shouldn't have to be emotionally uncomfortable at work.
Ooh.
And one of the things that allowed me to do a lot of stuff was I realized I was going to have to become emotionally uncomfortable at work to be successful. And I was going to have to do stuff that scared me. Like, that's just the bottom line.
Ooh.
And I've got to figure out how to break it down to small enough pieces that I can actually be successful.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of when you start to make things into systems.
Yeah.
It's little tiny pieces. It's back to 1% better every day, right?
Yes.
Here's a quick example. What's 7 times 3?
21.
Exactly. The reason you can just give me that answer is because there's a math system.
Yeah.
You started counting when you were 4.
2.
Right? 2. Okay.
For me, yeah.
Okay. So you're ahead of the curve. For me, it was probably 5.
Yeah, South America, we do things differently.
Okay.
We start earlier.
Mad win. But then you learn to add.
Yes.
Right? And then you learn to subtract. Then you learn to multiply. And so because that system gave you all these little tiny pieces, when someone says what's 7 times 3,
it's
and you
on
say,
auto.
It's automatic because you've built this system of little tiny pieces.
Yeah.
And so being uncomfortable at work, I know that there's a way to break it down to something small.
Yeah.
Right. And so, when I suddenly had 80 people to go work with and I was panicked, the insight that my friend gave me was, oh, wait a minute. Number one, you already know a bunch of this stuff.
You already know. Yeah.
You already know how to do this stuff. This stuff is easy. And the thing that you don't know how to do, you've got time to learn, and you can break it down into little tiny pieces. Right. And that was when you know that you can break down to small pieces, then being emotionally uncomfortable at work is just okay, so how do I break it down so that I'm going to be emotionally uncomfortable, but it's small enough that I'll survive it.
Yes.
Right. And over time, we keep practicing, we do it over and over again, and then it's not hard anymore.
Right.
It takes 5, 10, maybe 30 reps. And then we're like, oh yeah, it's a cakewalk. What was I afraid of?
Yeah.
And then you do the next level up, and you do the next level up, and the next level up, and the next level up.
Whoa.
And people don't think about it that way. I've had multiple peers when they've asked me how I've done something, and I've kind of given the high level because I didn't think about the breakdown.
Right.
They're like, I can't do that. That's too scary. Like they literally said that to me, that's too scary. And I'm thinking to myself, really?
What is scary about this?
Right. But at that point in time, I didn't realize all the baby steps I'd taken.
You took to get to that high level.
To get to that level. And now I actually understand the system, and I can break it all down to little tiny pieces.
Right.
And someone says, oh, I'm uncomfortable with this thing. Great. Let's figure out how do we break it down to tiny pieces.
Yeah.
So that you can start and then build and then get to the point where you want to achieve.
And so that's the one thing about it. And we live in a world where everything is just so accelerated, and the importance of understanding that to actually have results, what's truly important are the steps that you have to take to get there. And so even as a coach and mentor, that's what you're often doing. It's like everyone wants to be like, okay, so what do I need to do so I could be this? And I'm like, there's a lot of things you need to do. Let's talk about it. And as a coach, it seems so elementary that you're like, okay, first, you know where you want to go. How do you get there? Who do you need to recruit? What's the time frame? And it's so simple in our minds, but we don't realize that because the world has just become so fast paced that you look at someone's journey and you think, well, oh, Bill was just over here, and now look at Bill over there. Well, Bill, you've only noticed Bill for 1 year, but Bill has been working on this while he was doing that so he can get here. And so when you're able to teach leaders and managers, this process is really going back to the elementary steps. Sometimes you've been looking at the ones you did take that didn't work, so there can be some unlearning.
Right.
Because I love the quote you talked about, putting this new, it's like you said, the swimmer is not can study swimming until he gets in the pool and actually starts swimming. He's not a swimmer. And so that's what you're doing. You have to unprogram and then reprogram. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So guys, we're going to be right back after a word from our sponsors with Flip the Script with Bill Lennon. Disruptors, we are back with our phenomenal guest, Bill Lennon, 40% better. We are so digging in and loving this conversation. And you all know I am all geeked out working in corporate America and corporate Guyana for so many years, government, nonprofit. I myself have stumbled on the fact that having a system that works really helps, but more and more importantly is valuing the people that work those systems. And so Bill has given us the gems of the gems of the gems. And so we're at the episode segment where we are going to do Flip the Script to get under him a little bit and have some fun and also learn some more about his insights on transformational leadership. So Bill, Shifting gears a bit, can you share a pivotal moment in your life where you had to flip the script about something major? I feel like you've told us that the entire episode, but is there one that you just can think of you'd love to share with us that you didn't already share?
Yeah. So when I was 16, I broke my femur skateboarding. And it was the very beginning of summer vacation, and I had a lot of plans. I was living in Hawaii at the time. I was definitely going to get a lot of surfing in.
Yes.
I had a new girlfriend, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be a great summer. Only, when I got to the hospital, they said, no, you're going to be here for the next 3-4 months. Because at that point in time, I had to be in traction. And, and I needed medical attention pretty much on a daily basis. And they said, you're going to be here. Forget the beach.
Right.
And I was incredibly upset.
Of course. You had huge plans.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, now what? After I'd cried for a while, I finally realized radical acceptance.
Yeah.
Like radical acceptance is, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It's not my choice, but this is what it is. And how do I optimize going forward?
Yeah.
Right. And so I decided I was going to learn as much as I could during my stay in the hospital and really use it as an educational opportunity. And what can I come out of the hospital knowing that I don't know when I go in?
My people, my people, my people. You are my people. Did I tell you guys, when I met Bill, I was like, we are tribes. And I told him he's stuck with me, and don't get jealous of anybody else, because I believe that divinely, everyone who comes to this, he said, what can I learn? That's exactly, I was stuck in bed a couple years ago, having to recover. It's supposed to be like a 2-month recovery and ended up being a 4-month recovery because I had major health challenges. I had to do emergency surgery. And no one knows. I published a international best-selling book during that time. I did all kinds of great things. And I'm like, okay, I was in the bed with the computer like this because I couldn't move my stomach. I had surgery on my abdominals. And that's what's up. So when I was going to ask the next question, what kind of mindset, but you already told us it was how can I and what can I do while I'm here? So that's a given. The next question we have for you as a transformational leader, how do you define success? And has your definition evolved over time?
So the big definition of success is that I can look back on my life with zero regrets as having been a great adventure. Like, that's the big game.
Yeah.
Right. Years ago, when I was in college, I read some book and I can't remember what it was, but one of the things that they talked about was recognizing that you don't want to die with regrets.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the worst thing. And so that stuck in my head.
Yeah.
So for me, success is that I'm learning new things. I'm having great adventures. I'm taking risks. I'm stretching my knowledge. And part of this is role modeling for my kids. Yeah. Right. Like I'm really making sure that my kids get what's possible and that they know the struggles I've gone through also. Like I'm not whitewashing anything. Like they fully get the downsides.
Yeah.
Right? But they know that this is what's possible to have. Right. And then, shorter time window, it's how are the people around me feeling? How happy are they? How self-confident are they? What are the things I can contribute to help their lives operate better?
Wow.
In a lot of ways, being a team leader is like being a parent.
Yes. Yes.
And so I use the same skills to help the people on my teams become more self-confident and more self-actualized in the world. I do the same thing with my kids.
Yes, I agree.
And that way, number one, I worry very little about my kids because I see their progress and I see how they're thinking and what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know way more right now at their ages than I did when I was their age. I've been, trying to dump everything I've got in my head into theirs.
Yes.
and at work, it's just are my people getting better? Are they more confident? Are they happier? Is there friction being handled?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Perfect. So the next question I have for you, and flip the script, is looking ahead. What's your next big goal, and what kind of mindset do you believe is required to achieve that big goal? If you can share it with us.
So obviously expanding 40% better. This is a brand new thing. We've been working on it for 6 months now.
Yeah.
Actively working on it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And getting the next cohort launched. We've done 3 beta cohorts already. The next one I'm gonna actually get like real paying customers in. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Longer term, I want to build out a train the trainer program.
Yay!
Because I can't scale this big enough myself.
No. And we need the message out.
Yeah. And I recognize that everybody's a little bit different. And so there's a part of our training that's just, here's the fundamentals. Right. And then there's a part of it that's actually coaching, because somebody needs different hands-on, very
customized,
for their situation, their particular and where they're comfortable and confident and relaxed and easy versus somebody else. And so we have to have humans involved in I can't just do the whole thing on video.
You can't. Yeah. There has to be that hand over hand sort of to bring, because there's that unlearning and that relearning. So what kind of mindset do you think you need or is required for you to achieve these goals?
I'm going to have to get comfortable, as usual, getting uncomfortable. It's going to be
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Stuff I've never done before.
Yeah.
It's going to be taking risks. And risks are all calculated.
Yes. That's that entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's calculated. And even if other people don't understand the calculation, I understand the calculation.
And you stay true to the course.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, this is scary and I can handle it.
Yes.
And it's part of it is because I'm pattern matching. But I've already done stuff before that's 80% of this.
Yes.
Right. Or 70% of it, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
But it's not like the whole thing is brand new. It's
getting it out is the new part, not the system at all.
It's an increment thing, right? It's a small increment, right? What's the increment?
Yes.
And I don't know how I'm going to train the trainer yet.
Yeah.
But enough people have done train the trainer program.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure I'll figure it out.
And I also told you already, you're stuck with me. So I'm part of that. I'm on the team. I'm on team Bill Lennon with 40 BP. I'm down there. So I'm coming in and you got me. I'm not going anywhere. This is a vision. I will tell you my initial executive and corporate coaching goal before I thought about going back into coaching in the one-on-one space, because I coach in for government nonprofit, and that's how I got into the one-on-one coaching or group coaching space, right? But when I thought early in my career, when I did launch into, I wanted to be a psychologist, and when I launched into the business realm I was 50 when I decided I'm going to do business, medicine and all that's just too long, and I had a knack for it. Then I went into an entrepreneur and I was sure, okay, so my second degree was business. And as I delved into it and worked in corporate and stuff, I was like, people just really need to learn how to treat their employees. They don't realize that they're missing. I tell people, I don't care if you have $1 million revenue, you could be making $10 million if you just do some changes. And so I wanted to help solve that problem.
Yeah.
And so when I say you're my hero, it's like, okay, so someone's already figured it out, and that's still a part of me. Like all the things I do in the world is I'm a visionary. So I have to create spaces for people to do what God has allowed me to lead. But my personal work, I'm still very passionate. My belief is this system that you've built is even applicable to governments.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And it's like, and I am big on that, because now we're targeting leaders who are at the top of our entire food chain around the globe. And so my mind, you just have no idea. I'm just here to let me know how to get support. And you guys just had a conversation. I'm not pitching anything. It's like, you can count on me, call me. I'll give you what I got. That's what I'm saying. But here the mindset, he says, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and also just doing the hard stuff, knowing my purpose, being certain about it, staying focused no matter who doesn't show up, who doesn't understand, who disagrees. Bill is going ahead. And that, my dears, is the mindset you need for all the things in your life. So master teacher today, Bill's giving it all, putting it down. And that's everything. We'll be right back after a moment from our sponsors with Mindsets to Go with Bill Lennon. We'll be back. Back with our final segment of this phenomenal episode. Listen, guys, and behind the scenes, Bill has still been giving me more and dropping gems. So you guys want to get into subscribing and being some of the behind the scenes conversations gets really even more powerful than the podcast or along with the podcast. So Bill, this is Mindset Bites to Go, where as we wrap up, you get to give our viewers and listeners around the globe key takeaways or lessons that you learned that they can walk away from this discussion or just your life path that would help them continue to grow, shift their mindsets, and win in their life, business, and career. So I'm going to step away from the microphone and the video and let you knock it out. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you. So I've had a bunch of struggles in the course of my life, and I realize I've always been learning opportunities. And that if I look at them as a learning opportunity, like when I broke my femur, there's always wonderful things that come out of that. And that helps me have a degree of confidence, and I never feel like I'm a victim of a situation. It's always okay. And, I get that horrible things happen to people that they don't want to have happen. And I also know that there's people that come out of those situations stronger than they've ever been before. And for me, that's always an amazing thing to be able to see and to witness and be like, wow, that's, someone's able to do this. This is phenomenal. Another mindset, that mental model framework that I use all the time, and it's certainly part of how we built 40PB, is that everything is hard the first time you do it. And it's probably going to be hard the first 10 times you do it. But when you've done it 1,000 times, it's going to be really, really easy. And that applies to everything. It's just the practice effect. At first it seems hard and it seems scary and it feels really, really awkward. And then it gets easier. And then you don't even think about it anymore. And we forget that because people don't say that out loud, that, the first time you do this thing, this is going to be hard. It's going to be rough. You're going to feel really, really awkward, and just expect that. And don't have it be a big deal. Just know that that's how it's going to be. And even better, if you want to level up, laugh about it the very first time you do it, or when you make a mistake or whatever. And just know that practice is going to make it better and better and better and easier for you. Even if at the very beginning you're like, I have no idea how I'm ever going to be successful at this because I'm just not good at it right now. We remind people that all the time, that that's just the nature of it, because frequently when people are in our program, they bump into that place. They're like, I don't know if I can do this thing. And we're like, okay, you can. You're going to suck at it on day one. But just expect that the practice is going to take time. The repetitions are going to take time, and then you're going to have an easy time with it. Dr. Whyte did a really great example of this earlier, where I asked her what 7 times 3 was, and she said 21, because she's had a lot of reps of doing math in her head. Most people are the exact same way. They can do that. I had a really hard time with multiplication tables when I was a kid, but a lot of reps later, now they're easy for me. I think as long as you focus on it's going to take practice to get good, and you're willing to learn things, you just keep moving ahead and getting better. And if you're running a team, you're learning how to help them be more happy and self-confident, and of course productive, because productivity is really a key part of this whole thing. And being able to help them understand what that looks like. But also you're growing yourself, because you're learning skills yourself. You're learning how to do things that you couldn't do before. The work works on you as much as you work on the work. And I can't remember who said that. It's a quote from somebody or other. But it's all about the fact that we're doing this work to help our team, or our kids if you happen to be a parent, or both. But it's also us growing in the process, and us getting more self-confidence, and us expanding our skill set. And becoming better contributors to the world is basically the bottom line. And that's the end of that speech.
That was so brilliant advice and takeaways for us. I personally will be rehashing it. I do listen to this podcast over and over again. So many episodes I have to go back from our guests and learn as we keep that growth mindset that Bill spoke about. So Bill, you know, everyone's probably like, tell us more about 40BP. And so how do we connect with you and how do we connect with the program?
Yeah. So my email is very, very easy. It's just bill@40pb.com. Number 40, P is in percent, B is in better.com. I got very lucky to get a very, very short domain name.
Yes. And we will also have it in the description below. So even if you're listening, you can also connect in the description. And on social media, where do you want us to find you?
So social media, I'm on LinkedIn. WB Lennon is the last part of my tag on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I do a lot of TikTok videos about this stuff. I find TikTok to be a really quick, easy way for me to get thoughts out of my head, and oftentimes the pieces that I put up there end up becoming bigger blog posts or they're right. I record a podcast, right?
Yes.
There's lots of little bits in there, and we've just started a YouTube channel.
Oh, wow. So we're going to have all these links in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast episode. We are I am loving it. I can't wait for all the other things you're going to do. And you're invited to continue to be a part of Mindset Mastery Moments, the podcast, and also our Mindset Mastery 360 movement. Our leaders definitely going to bring some of this good stuff down the road to us live and also virtually. Bill, we thank you so much for sharing your insights and wisdom with us today. Yes, it has definitely been an enlightening conversation that I'm sure our listeners and viewers will find invaluable in their journey. Even if they don't have themselves in a leadership position at this moment, it's been transformational both for life, career, and business. And our audience also, thank you so much for joining us and exploring the mindset of a transformational leader and how to get that 40% better results. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on Mindset Mastery Moments. This is Dr. Alisa and Bill Lennon coming to you live. And we say, having a phenomenal rest of your week. Keep listening to Mindset Mastery Moments and share this episode with someone you know that might want to listen. Bye for now.